What do we take in terms of the long term from this decision? What kind of a lasting impact on jurisprudence with respect to tech and content can we take from it?
Well, it was really interesting reading the opinion, which came out this morning at 10 a.m. It was a per curiam opinion, which means it's for the court, with two concurring opinions attached, one by Justice Sotomayor and one by Justice Gorsuch. They decided the case on the merits, on the First Amendment question, and they found that the ban survives intermediate scrutiny, it's constitutional, and Congress has valid content-neutral reasons for regulating TikTok. So they first go through, is it a First Amendment question properly before us? And they say yes. And then they go through the First Amendment analysis, finding that the law was facially content neutral. It was justified by a content neutral rationale, that TikTok brought a claim, but that under intermediate scrutiny, the law is valid. So this decision will be, part of the canon or part of the First Amendment jurisprudence. And Justice Gorsuch even said he feels uncomfortable, that the court is making such a big decision based on a handful of days of deliberation, but that it's narrow enough that they issued a per curiam opinion, and they all are in agreement.
Sarah, they're in agreement that national security was the key here, and that ultimately First Amendment right stays if you're able to find a different buyer. It's mainly the issue of who owns the parent company of who owns TikTok, and indeed how close ByteDance is to China. So what next? How could you alleviate that national security issue? Who would it have to be a US buyer? Is there any way that we cannot see it divested?
Right. Well, that's a really good observation. Nothing else has changed. So Congress has made a determination. The president 5 years ago even raised questions about China being a foreign adversary and having impact on the algorithms. So even the prediction markets are looking at, well, will the ban be in play in May 2025? So, how much can really change? Will there be changes in their systems, in their ownership structure? That's all still to be determined, but the concerns are still there.
Yeah.
There was strikingly bipartisan support by Congress. No legislator really disputed the national security risks. So those are all still there.
But now they're changing their mind. There seems to be a complete about face. Everyone wants to ensure that on the 19th, poof, we don't suddenly lose TikTok. Sarah, we're also seeing the user base flock to other Chinese-run companies. Lemonade is owned by ByteDance. We're seeing RedNote becoming a key focus. Is that going to be a concern? Is that a national security issue?
Isn't it ironic? I think it's interesting, and it is a kind of a political, popular culture moment where American policymakers have to kind of make the case to American young people that social media apps that are made here in the US are preferable, but really they're competing on stickiness. The apps are sticky. TikTok is fun to be on. So if anything, there might be implications for American policymakers to be more sympathetic to American companies building social media apps.
Sarah, how does this fit into the broader game between Washington and Beijing when it comes to trade and technology policy? Does this become, if a sale goes through and China approves it, does this become a point of leverage for Xi Jinping in his dealings with Donald Trump? We saw they spoke today.
Yeah, well, TikTok and the sticky apps, they're definitely a feather in their cap. China's very good at making these apps. And so, it would be surprising if they let ByteDance divest. I mean, if I were them, that's a very strong point of leverage. But President Trump is good at negotiating a deal. And so there are private buyers as well. What could happen is they could buy the TikTok brand and rebuild the whole infrastructure. It would be a different app, a different stack, but it would still have presumably the same social graph that TikTok has, but not the source code that makes it so sticky. It raises a question of where are the American competitors? Caroline mentioned Snap earlier, Snapchat, Threads, why are these apps not getting all the traffic that might come off of TikTok? So I think it's a good moment for Americans to think about, well, why don't we have a TikTok that's homegrown? Can we have one that's better built? And let's keep Americans happy on American apps. I think that is a presumption that maybe all the scrutiny of social media companies has maybe lost. I mean, there's a balance between, regulating and warning of dangers, but then there's also this competition that's going on. So I think it's an interesting moment.